road trip. Who's in? No, not you, Seamus. Ah, poo.
So this is a topic that I've certainly seen asked about more than once on this channel, because yeah, I certainly do talk about animation a lot and have used a lot of clips from plenty of indie animated projects, but never actually talked about them on this channel, with one exception, but that was very recently and more about a character than the series as a whole. So I thought it would be fun to talk about some of my favorite indie animated shows, specifically ones on YouTube, so I highly recommend checking out some, if not all of these when you get the chance, you know, depending on which ones sound appealing to you. And you know what? To make things fun, if any of the creators for any of these series comment on this video, then I will do a full-blown in-depth review of that series. And I feel confident in saying that because I know that shit ain't happening. The beauty of indie animation is that there isn't that corporate agenda behind it, and often indie animation projects are taking bigger risks and often leading the forefront in original pieces of media. And yes, I specifically avoided talking about this series for a very long time, for a lot of reasons despite many people asking my thoughts on it, but I do feel like I need to talk about what many have considered to be the poster child for indie animation, and that would of course be Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss. Granted, Hazbin got picked up by Amazon Prime in A24, so that by definition is no longer an indie show, and same goes for Helluva Boss, since that also recently got picked up by Amazon Prime, but I'm still gonna count them because that's where they started off, at least for the sake of this video. And my relationship with these two shows can be described as complicated, and that is such an understatement, because regardless of what I think of any indie animated project, I still have this level of respect towards them because they are going outside the traditional method of creation, which is going to be much more difficult for the creative team, and that alone deserves a round of applause. Am I saying all these things to cover my ass? Maybe, but it is true. But enough beating around the bush, but both of these series have let me down. Hazbin has some really catchy songs, even if they don't fit in the context of the show. The characters can be fun, and they aren't being really insufferable and low-key problematic while also not getting or maintaining any kind of significant character growth. And the story is just a huge mess. There's nothing positive on that one. It's hard because I really want to like the show. I really do. But there are just so many problems that it really gets in the way of me being able to enjoy this show that I desperately want to. Helluva Boss, on the other hand, had a pretty strong season 1, which granted still had its problems, but for the most part it stood on its own. And then season 2 was just progressively more and more disappointing, with the constant theme of, I can't wait to see how this newly added element will come into the show again, along with the 30 other new additions. And after each episode continued this pattern while leaving them open-ended, we get to the finale, which decided to sacrifice consistent writing for fan service cutesy squee moments that the fan base would slurp up like a pig out of trough. Are these the worst shows ever? No, of course not even close. But the fact that it feels like both of these shows could be excellent but instead drift into or straight up bad is just extremely frustrating. Also, Stolas. I hate this stupid bird so much. But that's enough of that. Moving on to the indie animations that I actively enjoy watching, with the first one I started watching being Doraleous and Associates, created originally by the channel Hank and Jed, but most people probably know them from their main channel, that of course being Neebs Gaming, which for those of you that don't know is definitely the YouTube channel I've been following and watching the longest in terms of being on YouTube, hands down. Doraleous and Associates is a fantasy-based series that is almost like the pre-Vox Machina before Critical Role became a thing. And while on a smaller budget, it's still just as entertaining, with a lot of funny improv conversation moments.
If I had a name badge, you know what it would say? Thomas.
You would not wear a Thomas name badge.
I would if I didn't want you to know my name, which is what the troll is doing.
Yeah,
you don't look anything like a Thomas, and he actually looks a little bit like a murder.
And even later on, I get pretty hyped and invested into the finale, which to me is the sign of a good series. Because if I'm laughing and legitimately invested in the story, then the show is doing what it intended to do. And if you're wondering why this style of animation may be familiar, it's because these are the same guys that did Battlefield Friends. Oh. The next series I wish to talk about is Triangle vs. Monkey, created by Blunt Brothers Productions. It's a series featuring Godzilla and Kong traveling across the multiverse and getting into a bunch of different shenanigans and facing all these different kinds of threats. It has a very simplified version, there's an overarching story, but I'm keeping it brief for this video. It's both a lot of fun with some really good slapstick, but it's also not afraid to have these more serious and quieter moments. Like, you know, if this was a big Hollywood production, then a lot of these emotional moments would be cut short with a joke, because heaven forbid we have a moment of sincerity, which I think is the best way to describe this series. Sincere. It's full of lots of heart part, and I don't mean that in a plucky upstart underdog destined to fail kind of way. In fact, when so much media feels extremely corporate and impersonal, it's cool to see this series evolve into that show that fills that need, at least for myself. And even outside of that, the evolution in animation is so satisfying to see, and I can't wait to see how this series continues to grow and become so much more than its humble beginnings of a simple meme. Now this next thing I'm gonna say sounds like I'm going off topic, but I promise I'm making a point. With this comment being one of my favorite comments I've ever received on this channel. Well, dear viewers, this will blow everyone's mind, but I am actually, in fact, his long-lost son. That's right, Mr. Hawaiian Shirt had this embarrassment at the ripe old age of, how old is he? 2 years, wait a minute, he's only that much older than me? Anyways, but if you give a social media platform a Wendigoon, then chances are it's going to ask for a meat canyon to go along with it. See what I did there? Little Creepcast reference? I'm a cheeky little dastardly bastard, but can you blame me? I mean, this is my father after all.
I'm actually out here in nature because I've determined that Magic Spoon is made not by humans, but by magical elves. And I have ventured here far out into the wilderness to kill them.
But Meat Canyon is up there for one of my favorite YouTubers, with a big reason being his constant push to create, which has inspired me to actually try and make stuff, instead of being one of those people that always talks about all the stuff they're going to make but never actually carry out. And while he has 2 original series, with the first being Monster Lab, which I do enjoy, but I wanted to talk about his newer creation, Melvin Macabre, hopefully I pronounced that right, I'm just as bad at pronouncing things as he is, which features the characters of Melvin being placed into these different situations, often involving supernatural elements or that signature Meat Canyon disgust, or in a lot of cases, both. Meat Canyon does a great job with horror, and it's very obvious that he loves it because he's always been good at it, but in my favorite episode, the Ghost Hunter episode, the demon is legitimately terrifying. It always impresses me how he's able to do a lot with the character of Melvin, and all of it, at least to me, feels fresh for the character while still remaining consistent with who he is as a character. Is it that I'm putting too much thought into it or overanalyzing it? Maybe, but darn it, I love Melvin. Not to mention that it's also just really funny.
Oh my god, he's looking right at you now. And he's naked. He's naked?! Oh my god, he's trying to suck your cock! Run, for the love of God, run! Spider!
Moving away from Melvin, let's go into probably the most popular show on this list, The Amazing Digital Circus, which, fun fact, it actually took me 5 separate tries to get through the pilot, because for whatever reason, I was just really struggling to get through that pilot. Not because it was bad by any means, I'm not even close, but nothing was really like yanking me in, which is crazy because the rest of the internet would have strongly disagreed with me, given how much it had blown up. I technically didn't even finish it until after watching episode 2, which I was able to watch in its entirety in one go. Thankfully, I stuck around because episode 3 is what fully won me over. The show does a good job of horror, but at least the biggest draw for me is the characters and the development involving them. I like that each one is given time to shine and grow, or even if they don't get a full episode, they will get these appetizers of what's to come, namely being Jax, who I hated at the beginning of this show. And it's not because he turned out to be a jerk, which that was always the case, and anyone who had their headcanon be the sexy rabbit man and then was hit by reality are just kind of people who spend too much time online. Sue me. But now I'm actually invested and curious on what's to come with him. On top of that, I like that the characters are allowed to have these quieter moments where we get to see the characters interact and grow these relationships instead of some other shows that I know. But between the great characters, fun horror, and lively animation style, it's no wonder why this show has become so popular, especially among mentally ill teenage girls. Hold up, put down the comments, stop. I didn't make that joke. The creators of my favorite indie animated show did, because their show is one that's targeted for teenage mentally ill boys. Yes, ladies and gents, I am of course talking about Space King. Space King, created by Flashgets, is such a fun show. Granted, it can be silly at times, but man, this show is really funny at times thanks to the jokes and the animation style.
It's okay, Captain. I just made this. It'll let him speak our tongue.
Maybe we do need to negotiate?
Oh good, you turned your radio back on. You're on the wrong planet. Yeah, actually, technically you're supposed to be on a moon.
The world that's also been created is also incredibly intriguing because after only 2 episodes, I'm already hooked. I love how, yes, there are these inherently silly things happening, but it's still being taken seriously, and it has this, and it's gonna sound weird, but a reverence to it. Like, never at any point do I feel like a cheap joke will be made at the cost of world building. Because if you've heard the creators Tom and Don talk about the process of making it, it's so clear how much care and thought is getting put into this. And I know some people are gonna be like, but Digital Circus does this better or blah blah blah. But hey, at the end of the day, I had a lot of fun. And sometimes you just want to see a bunch of big muscular men in sick armor run around, shoot, and kill things. I'm just a guy after all. And that's the beauty of indie animated series. There is such a wide range of different shows out there targeted to different audiences. And just because I didn't mention a show doesn't mean I don't like it or anything. I just wanted to pick some of my favorite ones to talk about. Because regardless of what some people may think of certain shows, valid reasons or not, these shows are at least creating alternatives to the mainstream way for creators to do that one thing that they love, create. And hey, at the end of the day, that's something that I can get behind and will always fully support. My name is Cameron, spank all those buttons, stay safe out there, and I will see you all later. Bye bye.